Hello everyone. Today we're going to be changing the thermal paste on this Lenovo laptop. Here I have my friend with me. We're going to be using Thermal Grizzly thermal paste. And let's actually start with the whole process itself. First of all, we'll turn the back of the laptop and remove all the screws. Here you can see where the screws are located. This particular model is Lenovo IdeaPad 330. The model, I think it came out in the second half of 2018, but this is this particular laptop we bought maybe a month ago. The process of changing the thermal paste will be similar on a lot of laptops, so this applies to a lot of models on the market, not only the Lenovo 330. On some models, actually you have rubber legs over the screws, so you have to remove them first and you will find the screws underneath. This particular model has an i5 CPU. Model is 8300H. The purpose of today's video, actually, we want to find out if we're going to drop the CPU and GPU temperature by changing the thermal paste with a more expensive model. In our case, this is the Thermal Grizzly. Okay, now let's continue with the process. And I see we have most of the screws undone here. This model also rocks NVIDIA GTX 1050, the 2GB version. And we'll be changing the thermal paste on both the CPU and the GPU. Okay, now with the screws undone, we just have to take the cover off, but you should be careful not to break anything on the sides where the ports are located. You can use plastic or paper. You can use plastic cards that you no longer need, for example. Just take your time and be careful not to break anything. Okay, so we'll pause the video for a second and we'll get back to you once we remove the cover. Okay, so now we remove the back cover. As I already said, take your time and start prying the laptop cover from one side, and then move through the rest of the parts. Here are actually the cover screws. Be careful not to leave any out. And once you remove the cover, here is the laptop itself. The heatsink is held together by a couple of screws. You can see them here. You just untighten these screws and it's ready to be removed. Here is what the thermal compound looks on the heatsink. This is when it was applied brand new. And here are the chips, the CPU and GPU. You can remove the thermal paste with alcohol. You can also use paper or cotton, but the easiest way to dissolve this is by using alcohol. Denatured alcohol or anything that contains alcohol in it. Okay. So now we'll take some time to clean everything. Make sure everything is clean before you apply the new thermal paste. Okay, so we removed the thermal paste. Here is what the GPU and CPU look like. Here is the NVIDIA GPU, and here is the CPU. You can also clean the back of the heatsink. And now it's time to apply the thermal paste. Here's what the thermal paste looks like. As I already mentioned, we're using Thermal Grizzly in our case. In the packaging itself, you also have instructions, and you have a plastic spatula which you can use to apply the thermal compound. In our case, there are actually multiple ways to apply thermal paste, but the easiest method, I think, is to apply a small amount in the middle, and then when you apply the heatsink, it will spread on the chip itself. Okay, here's what the application looks like. And now we just have to assemble everything in the reverse order. We'll take the heatsink and put it back together. And actually, for the screws, they are numbered. If you look closely, they have numbers on them. So when you put everything back together, just make sure you follow the numbers. This is so that pressure is evenly applied and that the CPU and GPU will be cooled evenly. Okay, as you can see, the whole process was very easy. Now all we have to do is put the cover back on and place the screws. And this is how you put the cover back together. Just make sure everything is fit nicely, and then you can start putting the screws back together. So we put everything back together and decided to run some benchmarks, and here are the results for Cinebench. Here are the scores that we got after applying the Thermal Grizzly Hydronaut. And this score over here was before with the stock paste. For CPU stress testing, we did Prime 95, and here are the results. Again, here the first test with the stock thermal paste, and then we did 2 runs with the new thermal paste applied. As you can see on the graphics here, the results after the thermal paste application, we see a lot smoother and more even package of the CPU temperature, and same goes for the second run. Here we also have some results for the GPU testing from for mark. In the GPU testing, we didn't see very noticeable results. We saw about a 2 degrees drop on the temperature and a little bit higher frame rate. This is what we wanted to show you in the video, and thanks for watching.